This is a look at the AIDS crisis by me. Back in the 70s and 80s, San Francisco and New York City was like gay mecca for gay men and women. Although, like most things, LGBT history is riddled with a sexist past, so it's wildly male-focused, so we'll say it was a mecca for gay men. They mostly hung out in San Francisco's Castro District and Christopher Street in New York City. That's besides the point. Anyways, then, out of nowhere, the AIDS epidemic hit, and suddenly all these people were dying left and right. By the time they had realized that something was happening, a majority of the gay men had been infected. Lesbians stepped up and decided to help them in hospitals by being nurses and stuff, because they decided that they needed to help their gay brothers if no one else would. You can tell that this one's a lesbian by her faux hawk. With little help from the government and research coming out almost as slowly as Kristen Stewart, the gay community decided to take matters in their own hands. The AIDS Memorial Quilt was started in San Francisco, while ACTUP was started in New York City. The AIDS Memorial Quilt was started by Cleve Jones in San Francisco, a pretty well-known activist from the time, who once worked with Harvey Milk before his assassination. So, this is Cleve. And this is the AIDS Quilt. Family and friends of deceased AIDS victims each created a panel, and it was all sewn together. The first showing was on the National Mall in 1987. The first showing had 2,000 names on it. At the time the quilt was being shown in D.C., Cleve told reporters that there were 1,000 more names that would be added when it got home to San Francisco, and it would almost double in size. The quilt didn't just have the names of gay men. It also had children and babies. It was a great framing for the AIDS epidemic. It showed that gay people had families and loved ones who cared that they died. It humanized them in a way that made people realize that this could be anyone. It showed that gay people loved and lost just like everyone else. I know, I was surprised too. It opened during the Reagan's presidency and made several more visits to D.C. during the next two presidencies. The first family that visited were the Clintons. Don't mind that he was the one who signed in Don't Ask, Don't Tell and the Defense of Marriage Act. We just pretend that didn't happen. There was an upward scale shift, taking a problem that only affected gay men and brought it to attention on a national scale. Here's a picture of it, what it looked like in real life, because my drawing was not great. On the other hand, there was ACTUP. ACTUP, or the AIDS Coalition to Unleash Power, is a walking study in unconventional methods of protest. It began as a grassroots movement in New York City. Protesters of the infamous pink triangle. Posters with the infamous pink triangle with the words "Silence equals death" started popping up throughout the city. In 1988, Senator Jesse Helms introduced a bill that prevented the federal CDC from giving money to AIDS research and prevention, calling gay men perverts, which is super fun to hear. In retaliation, ACT UP members wrapped his house in a giant canvas condom that said Helms is deadlier than a virus. They bum-rushed members of the media. They stormed and protested at the National Institute of Health, and much more. To this day, there is still part of their website that tells you how to properly do civil disobedience. Unconventional tactics like those used by ACT UP usually comes when people believe they had nothing else to lose. And they didn't. They literally had nothing to lose. They were dying. People were dying, and the government was dragging its feet. Both of these movements had the same end goal. They wanted research and drugs into bodies of those affected and dying. They didn't want their friends to die anymore. They wanted people to have the drugs available to live long and healthy lives with this disease. And eventually, we kind of got there.